Art One-on-One with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to another episode of Art One-on-One. I'm your pod boss, Nichole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Burgher.
Ready again, willing, hopefully able to open up the mind pockets of art stuff for you, my friend.
You sound so excited.
Well, I am.
Okay, you might want to change the tone of your voice then. I'm excited to be here. I mean, it's tough getting here, getting everything set up and going, but
yeah,
it's fun when we get going.
Yeah, once we get in the flow of it, I think our you got peaks and valleys.
Ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and flows. That's another smart word of saying it. I wasn't an English major in high school, so I don't know about those things.
Aren't you funny?
Mm-hmm.
Very funny. Well, I think we'll stick to our regular programming and dive into the Ask the Art Guides.
Well, you are the pod boss. You decide the flow.
Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. With you, I feel like this thing is sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. Like last time, you kind of tended to take over I was trying to finish and you were done, and so there's that.
Yep.
I'm taking over today.
All right,
so we're going to start with Ask the Art Guides.
Ask the Art Guides, our longest consecutive doohickey here on Art One-on-One. Segment. Yeah,
you have a lack of words today.
I'm struggling.
You're a little under the weather, so that's
and so anyway, Ask the Art Guides. We're going to see what the art guides have to direct and guide our conversation today. And that is, what is the directive?
The artist today is Yayoi Kusama. How would you
Kusama? I don't know her.
We'll say Kusama.
And
let's go by Kusama.
And she is an artist that I am familiar with mostly in passing. I've seen different pieces or articles or whatnot on her that I've read a little bit. Her work doesn't, I would say that her work isn't necessarily my cup of tea, so I haven't dived too deep into it. But there are some interesting things about her personality and her life story that are quite fascinating. But I would say that I'm not an expert on her. I
would agree with you in that. So I pulled the card beforehand, so I did a little bit of research on it.
Of course you did.
Preparing for today. And so I did go into, her story behind, how she got into art and why she got into art, very similar to most, not most, but a lot of artists, that she had a lot of trauma growing up, and just really needed art as an outlet and therapy,
mm-hmm.
and it changed her life. And that part, she moved to New York City to start out, and she was wealthy where she came from, but going through a lot of stuff, going through a lot of abuse. But when she came to New York City, then she didn't have all of that, but she was poverty, extremely poor, and started with nothing, which, what an interesting story. And now her art, I don't know that I love her art, but the meaning behind her art I love, I guess. And
so when we focus on the conversation of it,
mm-hmm.
What conversation starter are we pulling out of this card today?
Art. So I don't know which one I'm doing. It's the very last one. You always know.
That's the inspiration.
So, and which I haven't done, I don't think, for a while. The last one we did was life.
Yeah, we haven't done inspiration in a bit.
And I picked this one because I think it'll be an interesting topic topic of conversation. It says, show them your hallucinations.
Mm.
So I think because of the trauma that she went through and whatnot, she was she struggled with a lot of things, and hallucinations
mental
was one
illness,
of them.
I think, was a part of her. Again, I wouldn't say that I know a whole lot on her story or her background, but I do know that mental illness and those sorts of things are a component of her story. And I think artists, for one reason or another, we have these visions of what our art should be, whether that's rational or irrational, whether we're talking about someone like Cezanne, who has a very clear image in his mind of what that painting should be, whether we're talking about an artist like Giacometti, who has a very direct idea of what his art should be, and if he can't accomplish that, then it's either you quit or you refine it or whatever. And then there are artists like we have here, an artist who's focusing on, this is what I see and this is what I'm going to present, and it's not really for you to like or not like, but that's what I'm presenting, and if you just so happen to like it, then that's awesome. But if you don't happen to like it, well, there's lots of other things to look at. Go look at that stuff.
Right.
And, I guess I that's how I see it, I guess. It's a very Hank way of looking at it, I think.
Hank way of looking at it.
And, Hank's kind of like that,
Yeah.
Here's what I have to show you. And if that's not your favorite thing, well, it's my favorite thing to show you. So that's it.
Well, and the interesting thing is her art, like the polka dot, she was obviously known for her polka dots. Maybe not obviously, but those came from her hallucinations.
Right.
Like that's what she saw a lot in her hallucinations. So her mental illness, although it was a bad thing, also inspired her to do some really cool art. So it's interesting how that works.
I think you've got to find the good and the bad. If there's an artist that's dealing with mental illness, and I think sometimes we point that out, that artists are dealing with those sorts of things.
Well, I think most of society today
and
is dealing with.
I respectfully disagree. I don't think that it's most of society now. I think it's most of society, period. I think that a lot of times there were things that were going on in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s with our parents and grandparents who we can easily identify with, and we can say, oh yeah, they were bipolar, they had some depression, they had some alcoholism, they had some issues, they had some stuff, but the tough guy doesn't go to the doctor. The blue collar worker isn't going to go talk about their problems. You suck it up and you move on. And I think it's just where our society has evolved to in the world today, that we can say, most of society is dealing with these problems, but it probably has always dealt with these problems. They just have gone untreated.
Yeah. Well, you're taking what I said out of context, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, because what I was saying was it's much more prevalent nowadays, and maybe you disagree with that too. But obviously, mental health has always been an issue. It hasn't been maybe labeled as such, but there is much more mental health issues. A lot more mental health issues today, and you can't get into a therapist or a counselor right now. Like, it's impossible to find a therapist or a counselor.
But
if you're a new person seeking.
But my argument is that people have probably needed counselors and therapists for 100 years. They just haven't been open enough to going because of a stigma associated with it or a taboo around the topic. It's just like, if you have feelings of suicide, you have feelings of depression, you have feelings of inadequacy. Thank you. You have feelings of, whatever the case might be. You have certain feelings. Well, those would get swept under the rug because you don't want to show that you're weak. You don't want to show that you're flawed. You don't want to show that you're...
Oh, that's still around. And that's called Facebook. Everybody's showing their best selves. Yeah, we can agree to disagree on that one, I suppose.
Okay. We'll
Which
agree
we
to
do.
that.
We do.
Put it down in the comments. Tell her she's wrong.
I can handle it. I don't, and I'm in that industry. You are not. So, I mean, this is not my.
I'm in reality, though. I'm.
Sometimes you are.
I'm chin deep.
I don't think so.
In reality,
No.
and I can tell you that there are people that, I myself, I've talked to a counselor and talked to people about problems and issues and things like that are going on, and there are times of my life where it's like I always said I would never go to a counselor or a therapist just because of some stupid rationale that I had baked up in my own head, where the reality is having somebody to talk to that's somebody
Unbiased.
Right, that you could just throw things out there. And again, there are certainly, I'm sure there are horror stories of people going in and just a mesh of personalities that don't click, but whatever. I think that people
fan of therapy.
Yeah, I don't think people give it a shot. They make a judgment for one reason or another, and the tough guy isn't going to go in and talk about my problems. I'll just deal with it the way my dad did and my grandpa did, and I'll die of a stroke when I'm 25 because I'm not dealing with stress properly. I don't deal with stress. I don't have stress.
Yeah. You're so healthy.
Unless I'm talking to the cell phone provider, that'll work me up in a frizzy anytime. Don't even ask. Don't even ask about the cell phone providers today.
Goodness. Yeah. You can, if you can't tell, he is a little grumpy today.
I'm a little grumpy about it. It wasn't. It's a creation of the cell phone company that I'm not going to put on blast on my podcast. Just because somebody will say, "Why are you using them? You should switch to my thing." Yeah, I don't care. I don't want your commercial. All right.
Okay.
Anyway.
So
moving right along.
Kusama.
So
Yayoi. Yeah.
So yeah.
So she is our art guide inspiration today, our oracle card inspiration.
Yep.
And I think, the card did its job today.
Okay.
We had a great. I did read about her that she was inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yeah.
And which you've done videos about.
I have done videos on Georgia O'Keeffe.
But I don't remember what type of, is she similar to, I love that she in one of the videos I was watching about her, they said she was a complete opposite of Jackson Pollock. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say the complete opposite, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's what she said.
I think that's it's an interesting
perspective.
An interesting. Well, just looking at her work and knowing the work of Pollock, and what she does, and
she said hers was calm, and where Pollock, you just feel like it's this outlet of chaos and aggression, and that's what I feel like when I look at that art. Whereas hers, I don't know that I would describe it that way, but that's how she describes it because it was that for her. It was calming, healing, and she wanted it to come across that way. Which
I don't know if it's calming and healing, but whatever. If you're into polka dots, it makes me. You see the polka dots, you think of what you think of, I come from what I think of. You think the polka dots, you're like, oh yeah, it's very 50s, it's very, whatever. I think when I think of polka dots, I go right to, you know what I'm talking about.
No.
The American Dream. Dusty Rhodes, baby. Dusty Rhodes got his polka dot phone with the sapphire.
I have no idea what that is. No.
The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes?
I mean, I know the name, but for him, does he wear
the bionic elbow? Yeah, baby. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. That's my best impression of Dusty Rhodes.
I don't know if that's good or bad, and
yeah,
I don't
baby.
care either. I can't handle watching that. He literally watched, what was it, WWF, WWE, what was it last night for like 5 hours?
WWF, Saturday night's main event marathon from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But
he watched that also.
Yeah, baby.
Does he wear polka dots?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
well, later in his career, he wore polka dots. And some people think that it was to...
Maybe he was inspired by Yayoi.
I don't think so.
No? You don't think he maybe secretly had all of her art hanging at home? And
No, I don't think it was the polka dots were his idea.
No?
No. I think it was it doesn't matter what the idea came from. We're
just go with it. Can't you just go with it?
Yeah, it was his idea. He collected her work. Yeah, we're all over his house. He's known for this.
Remember last podcast when you said you're so funny? Like you're always trying to be funny?
Me?
This is you. This is why I say that is not true. Because I'm trying to make it light and funny and you're like, no. I'm just cutting it off there.
Yeah, baby. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
All right. Enough of Ask the Art Guides. I think we had plenty of inspiration there.
We should get Ask the Art Guides of American Dream, Dusty, or pro wrestling. See if there's pro wrestling oracle cards. Maybe that'll be our next one.
We're probably a fourth of the way through the oracle cards. I feel like when I was mixing them up today, we're probably about
fourth
of the way through.
Yeah,
based on how many artists we've done.
Maybe.
So we've got a little ways to go. I did find her interesting, though. I mean, she's not one that we're familiar with, so shush.
Yeah, baby.
All right, so I have to put on my glasses.
The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes is going on to the next topic, baby. And if you can't get down with that, daddy, well, then that's just on you, okay? Now, what are we going to talk about next?
We're going to talk about the journey into
the archives.
Stop talking like that.
And that was with...
I chose Mark Hogenkamp's Marwencol.
Oh my gosh, Mark Hogan. That's probably one of my most viewed.
That's probably why it came up in my. A lot of times just videos come up for me to watch.
That's one of my most viewed videos of all time.
I'm not surprised it's not like popular today. How long ago did the movie come out with Steve Carell? On Marwen is what it was called.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Well, 5 years ago, because that's when this video was released.
Oh, okay.
So it was 5 years ago.
Okay, there you go.
Answer that question myself, but you would think, and I don't know what that movie is about. I never watched it.
I have it on DVD. If you want to watch it, baby, we can put it on the DVD.
So that topic obviously is very forthcoming today with all that's going on with the LGBTQ. Gosh, when I think about it, you can't really say that. I don't.
Well, I can say it just fine. LGBTQ+.
Yes. I'm glad it rolls off your tongue.
All of them.
But just the fact with this video that his story, holy crap, like what he went through.
Yeah.
With voicing who he really was and getting just almost beat to death
because of it. Well, and the thing is, I don't know where Mark Hogenkamp, to my knowledge, is still alive and working to this day, but I don't know if he is a member of the LGBTQ+ community specifically. I don't know if he's just because I know he likes to wear women's clothing, but I don't know.
He did at that time,
right? But I don't know if he's a part of that community.
I'm just saying the idea behind expressing his beliefs to someone and who he was, and then being beaten for it.
Right. And there are some. That's kind of a tough. There's a lot of kind of tough things going on in that video, but the photography of what he was making, to me, was really what, I mean, I really liked. His photography was just simple, but complicated. You know, like, there was a lot of things, there were a lot of things to it, and he just made it look so, like, you know, like, there's pictures, I don't know if you've seen the actual photographs or beyond the...
I just watched the video. I didn't go into any research about him.
But, he's an interesting character. Like, he made
Did he create those characters? The characters that were in there? Or did he use things that were already around? Okay.
Yeah, he just bought, like, G.I. Joes or whatever. But then I think he would buy, like, other accessories. He would buy other toys and things. And he would, like, he took on the personality of one of them.
Right.
And he would find one that looked like somebody else that he knew. And then, oh, that's who this is, you know, and like
right.
People in his town or whatever would become members of the Marwencol base camp or whatever it was, you know.
Did he bring people in and show them, like the people that were part
Very
of that?
few people.
Very few people.
Well, yeah, there were some people that he
one
would
of them,
show
'cause the
and
name
kind
for
of weirded out by it.
The movie is Marwen instead of Marwencol, so he eliminated one of the characters for sure, which is Colleen.
Yes, and I think that there was kind of there's like a weirdness story to it where he was going to marry, like, his character was going to marry her character, and he wanted to express that, and she was married, I believe, and didn't really feel comfortable with all of that, and so she felt, I don't know. There's something to that story. I guess I don't want to misspeak, but
right.
But anyway, like most things, friendships and relationships and things get complicated sometimes when you open your mouth. You know?
I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, there are times where I'll be talking to you about something, and I'll tell you the truth about something, and then you're like, oh, then you're like mad about it. Like, you're mad that I'm telling you the truth about something.
I do not. No, I listen to you when you tell me stuff like that. I may, like, initially maybe get a little bit irritated.
What do you mean? Blah blah blah.
Well, but, like, similar to Yayoi. I have no idea whether I'm saying her name right or not. But again, they used it for. There's so many artists that came into art as a way to heal themselves or therapy for themselves, and then became popular or whatnot because of it. Which, you know, you love those. You love those stories with those victories in them, and I don't know. I'm sure he struggled with that his whole life dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine. And I think that that's been a very, very popular video for whatever reason. I think because of the movie. Like, I put it out because I knew the movie was coming up, and I'm like, well, now it's a really good time to bring it up. And I had seen the documentary. There was a documentary done on him that was fantastically done. And so I'm like, well, you know, I'd like to do kind of a art thing and just kind of...
How did you incorporate it into... Because you were incorporating into your classroom at the time, right?
Correct. I taught digital photography.
Okay.
And that was one of the projects that I had with my digital photography class was to take non-living objects and try to take photographs of them so it looks like they're in a realistic setting. So a lot of times kids would, you know, try to take their, like, toys or whatever and turn it into a space, but then there were other kids that would take it to that next level and really make it work for, you know, one way or another, really make it work. But
I don't know. I was going to say it looks kind of creepy to me, but
you don't like it.
No, I don't like I mean, I get it. I totally get it, but it's just, in my opinion, or I just don't like it. It seems creepy to me. But so do a lot of other things.
So where does this video fall on the Nichole scale?
Ooh, I never even thought about that. I mean, you were playing music through the whole thing of it, like you had background music in it. Did you do that? Did you do that a lot? Like, was that something you did consistently in those videos? I mean, I kind of liked it, but
I think I always
during that time, 5 years ago, that would have been one of you.
probably. I don't remember when I started doing background music.
It's hard to say because I didn't like the content of it, and I don't want to rate it based on that. I mean, it was good content. It was good flow.
You just said you didn't like the content, and then you turn around and say it's good content. Well, which is it?
You present good information in it as far as art history.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
But did it make you think?
Of course. Yeah, that's why I said it's good. The content is good. I just didn't like the content. It was creepy to me. Does that make sense? My opinion.
Well, it's your.
But I don't want that opinion.
It's your analysis. You know, come on, Siskel and Ebert. Is it where does it fall on the scale?
I don't know. It just gives me an icky feeling, so it's hard to. It's probably an 8. It's probably an 8, but I don't.
So you're giving it.
Just gives me an icky feel. The whole video gives me. I don't like.
You don't like it, but you're giving it.
I don't like violence. I don't like. So it's hard for me to watch stuff like that. So. But
that seems like a real high number for you not liking it.
But it's not about. It isn't about whether I like the. It isn't about whether it's the video itself, isn't it? Like your presentation of the video. Is it accurate information? Is it a good video? Did you?
But you don't know if it's accurate information or not. At the end of the day, you've got to hopefully trust that the information is accurate.
Well, I do because I know you.
And you've got, and so then at the end of the day...
And then I say something wrong, he corrects me.
And so then you've got to say, okay, did it hold my attention? Did I like the visuals? Were there things that were distracting? Were there things that I didn't like? I mean...
Yes, and based on those things,
and at the end of the day, like if it was a movie, if this little video was a movie and somebody said,
I wouldn't have watched it.
But you did watch it,
Yes,
and so somebody.
Because I journeyed into.
And so somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, what do you think about that movie?" And then you say, "Oh, I give it an 8, even though I absolutely hated everything about it." Okay. Based
on the stipulations or the guidelines you just gave, that's what my 8 is on.
Okay.
So it's an 8.
I'm not going to talk you out of an 8, but
it's an 8 unless you're talking about how much I liked it and liked the content and found it interesting.
That's why it's your scale.
Okay, then it's a 3.
A 3?
I don't like anything on I can't watch scary movies. I don't like violence. I just feel it in my bones. I still feel icky after watching that video. Just for the 10 minutes that I watched it. So
it's a 3.
So it's a 3. Fine, if that's what but that doesn't make sense because it's a good video and a lot of people will enjoy it. A lot of people will enjoy learning about that artist and how he played out the trauma that he went through and kind of like not the success of it, but like it was a win for him, even though I'm sure he struggled with thinking about that incident his whole life. Did he get out much? Did he leave his house much? I feel like he created this world, and he didn't want to leave that world. Like he lived in that world almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. I just am wondering.
Yeah. That's not exclusively true, but generally, yes.
Yeah, see, and that just... But it is very interesting, and I would like to watch the
documentaries.
No, I don't think I could watch What's the Marwen movie about? Is it?
It's yeah.
How is it different than the documentary?
Well, the documentary is based on documents and facts, and just
oh my god, are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
And
I did not know that.
The movie is more theatrical, and so there's a little.
But still, real life driven, real.
Yeah, I mean it's. They play with reality a little bit, how we've talked about movies and things like that, how they take liberties,
embellish,
and which I don't like, but for the most part, it's fairly accurate. Other than they completely removed somebody's name from the title.
Because they probably had to.
I would imagine.
All right, I've had enough of that. So what do you want to talk about with the Claude Clark video?
To me, the fascinating thing was, as I've talked about before, there are all kinds of things that motivate me to make certain videos. And that particular video was, okay, we're going to a show, we're doing this thing. How can I use this as the backdrop to a video? Can I? Maybe. So we're going to see the Zac Brown Band. They're from Georgia. Okay, let me think of a Georgia artist that would make sense. So I look at a couple Georgia artists, and I'm like, Claude Clark would be a really interesting artist who I've never done a piece on. It's interesting because we're getting very, very close. We're getting closer to the changing of the year and those sorts of things. And lately, some of my African American sorts of topical videos have done very, very well.
Sounds right. Yeah, that's true.
So I've looked at, for example, I've got a video on Jacob Lawrence's Great Migration series, and Jacob Lawrence video, and Charles White video, and videos like these and others. They gain popularity. There's lots of people that view those. There's a lot of interest in those topics, especially like an artist like a Norman Lewis, who's not necessarily a very popularly known artist. He's popular, but not very like mainstream. If you go up to an average person and say, hey, whose artwork is this, they probably won't know. But I think that it's important information to spread on and keep going, keep people in the loop on who these people were that were making these really, really great pieces of work. And so I thought, what a great way to talk about an American artist, an American that participated in the Great Migration, who was traveling as a little boy from Georgia to Pennsylvania, where he lived, and how that influenced his art and his work, and he went on and became a great artist, a great educator, and very influential in terms of getting content developed for people to be able to diversify into African American sorts of topics. I mean, black art really wasn't created, wasn't made, wasn't spoke about in schools or anywhere for much of American history. And now it's like, okay, well, how do we add some of these multicultural, diversified things and lessons and plans and artists into our curriculum? And wow, what a great example he is. And so that's why I thought, what? He does some really cool political stuff. He does some really cool pieces that are just landscapes and flower pieces and
He's all
still lives, and he does some interesting portraits. So, here's an artist that I can talk about, that I know something about as an art educator. I respect a great deal. And so, wow, let's push his stuff out a little bit. And, we're at a Zac Brown band, so we might as well do it,
It was definitely the opposite of, watching that video. I loved his, the colors he used. I loved his story. It was just a whole different feeling when you watch that video than my journey into the archive experience. And he, honestly, he's probably one of my favorites as far as his art and the colors. I love the colors he uses. And then the fact that he wanted to, I think he wanted to teach, or he taught just as much as he did created.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like he was very inspirational when I watched him. And he wanted to be that for a lot of people. selfless. He was very selfless, I feel like. I don't know him, but watching the video, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
But his art was fun, too. Even, like, I don't know, there's just some... I love the artwork that was in there, in the video.
You know, he's an interesting artist in that respect. I mean, as a professional artist, master educator, I very much want to, you know, that's the type of thing that I want to be able to do. Like I want to teach the students. I want to pass along the information. I want to train them to do and all of those things, but I also want to maintain my own little connection to the art that I'm making and the stories that I want to tell and the way I want to communicate. And sure, I can pass things along, but I also need to do my own. And that's a tough balance. We've talked about that before over and over again, how that is a difficult balance for artists and educators to be able to do that. And Claude Clark was a master at it. I mean, he was able to be an effective educator and an effective artist. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't remember who he was, what he did. You know, Jacob Lawrence did that on a compounded level. I mean, Jacob Lawrence's name is like up there with the great American masters of the 20th century, where you know, in his work with the Harlem Renaissance and the things that he did later in life when he was working in I believe Washington as a art professor. But the point is that as you go through the ranks, finding artists that make it big that still want to teach.
Right.
I mean, they're really, really difficult. Jacob Lawrence he's kind of the cherry on top of the sundae, but there are lots and lots of artists that do that. And strangely enough, from Jacob Lawrence to Claude Clark, on and on and on, there's a history of these artists that were from that black community that were doing it, and they stick with it. And there's a lot of really great artist educators in the black community that get very much under recognized because they're an educator.
Yeah.
They don't count as much. They're part of that's the profession, and part of that's the duality of multiple hats at the same time. Part of that is, the nature of the profession.
Right.
The nature of being an artist. There's lots of things that, that.
Well, he definitely wasn't wealthy. We talked about it in the story how he used what was it, like a palette knife to paint with?
But that's not, lots of artists used a palette knife. And we've talked about it over and over and over again, how the artist's tools are so important. And there are artists that scrape by and they figure it out and they make it happen. And whether it's things that aren't right in society that make people look down on people, or it's mental illness, or it's one thing or another. There's a million reasons why people won't make it big, or they don't think that they should, or whatever it might be. And we've looked at a couple different artists that fall into a couple of these categories. But boy, I think that speaks volumes for the artists that are out there that are thinking, wow, maybe I should just keep it going. And, you never know what that one piece is that's going to make it big. It's just
that one connection, the one person that you connect with that will bring you forward.
No, it's just like these videos. I make video after video after video, and sometimes you think, wow, this is going to be a home run, and the views are, and it's gone. And then sometimes you're like, all right, like the Marwencol video, I thought, well, I'm going to make it because it's in conjunction with the timing of this movie. Maybe it'll get some extra traction. And it was the most viewed video for 3 or 4 years on end.
Really?
Yeah. Like
and it's not like it's a great,
every year for 3 years, the first 3 years that video had come out, it was the most watched video of that year, 3 years running.
I have a feeling this one will be, I suppose it does, it'll depend on what you name it to and what you tag it.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things.
But this is definitely one of my favorites. I would love to learn more about him. Just looking at his picture, he just looks like a humble, kind person.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't pretend to know all of the inner workings of all of these artists or anything else, but I do know because I've read the actual, like I talk about in there, the book that he had written, which is more of a
curriculum?
More, yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. More, it's not really a book. It's more of a really long. I guess the only way to describe it is a book, but it's just a series.
Like a textbook?
It's more of a series of papers and documents and things like that, where he explains why this curriculum into black art is important and why you should do it, and he gives examples of things and lessons and lesson plans and blah, 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 blah. And I went out and I researched until I found the actual document. And I'll be honest with you, I've been using it in my classroom this year. I've been using it. And, it's old. It's from 1970. So there's some things in there that aren't quite, 21st century, but most things that are really good are adaptable. Right. And, art is art, and you can adapt things to,
right.
to the world today.
It can inspire you.
Yeah, for sure. So.
Yeah, well, that makes me think of where we're going to go next that will inspire you. I think we need to get something on the calendar.
Okay.
For sure.
I think we should plan a trip to the next art museum then.
Well, it doesn't have to be an art museum.
Yes,
you did send something to me that was going on at the Nelson Atkins.
Yeah.
What was that one?
There's a Monet thing coming up at the Nelson Atkins, and there's.
I wanted you to go to the, what is that place in Iowa City that I wanted you to go to?
Oh, the Rocks.
Well, yeah, they have the stones there, but that's not the name of it. It's a Harvest
Rocks.
Harvest Preserve?
Harvest Rocks Preserved.
It's not, quit saying rocks. It doesn't have rocks in there at all. It's just a hole-in-the-wall place in the middle of Iowa City where these rocks were moved. These very sacred, huge stones were moved.
Sacred stones in the prairie.
Oh, Lord. Well, luckily we're coming to an end with this video, so I don't have to listen to you anymore.
Thankfully. You've made it. You made it, kid. You made it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you would, get on, hit like, subscribe. Check us out on all the other platforms. Not us, Mr. Burgher. He is on absolutely every platform out there, I'm sure. And would love your support. Hit the subscribe button if you could. That always helps out the most. So
yeah.
We're happy you're here. We're happy we're here. And we'll look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Hopefully, I feel like we've been in a little bit of a slump because I've been a little under the weather, but I'm stubborn and lazy and hard to live with. So,
amen to that.
Hopefully, we'll be able to get through it and move on to greener pastures next week.
You're gross. All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.